today and hope that you're well. I was doing a video last time about forgiving evil, and it was quite intellectual and doesn't talk about the actual experience or the lived experience, which is nothing like the intellectual representation. And I thought, how do I give an example of that? And I thought, well, I'll just pick something that some people may know about, which is, I think it's pronounced Klinefelter syndrome. But tell me if you're aware of that or not. I keep eating these little bread chips. It's got these things on them. It's oregano and semi-fried or baked Canaanite bread, which you'll find along the Fertile Crescent. You'll find it in Israel, in Lebanon. Bread without yeast, of course. It's called za'atar, as they call it in Lebanon. But anyway, I got to stop eating them. But I keep eating them. Sorry. Cheers. So I can give you an analytical explanation about XXY, which is the way my brain would see it, and I would think, okay, so like everyone's got something. Whatever it is, it's a consequence of evolutionary biology. These genetic mutations, most mutations that occur are to the detriment of the host. And this is a potential example from biological perspective. So if someone inherits XXY, then what happens is that you would expect that the body would deliver a different ratio of dosage of genetic material. So instead of getting an X and a Y, they're getting double XY. Now you might say, well, okay, but women get XX, so why aren't they getting a double dose of X? Well, the answer is that the body silences one of the X's by putting them into something called a bar body. When a male has XXY, then what actually happens is that the bar body system doesn't get activated in exactly the same way. About 15 to 25% of certain, I think it's going to be genes, get a MBRO, if I remember correctly, because I did my science degree years ago, my general science undergrad years ago, but I quickly read just to try and get my memory back, but we're talking about pseudo-autosomal genes or chromosomes. You'll have to look that up. But those ones, for some reason, the bar body X restriction doesn't work in the XXY human, so that those particular genes get an overdose of the X chromosome in a male. Get a Lillian. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that extra dose can destroy things like Leydig, LEYDIG, which produces testosterone, and also there's another one called I can't remember the name now. Cetonin. It's gone. But there was another thing that actually produces and develops and matures testosterone. So those things get destroyed. So not completely, but enough such that the person who's born with this XXY difficulty ends up not having enough testosterone being produced like an average male, right? And this is all just mathematics, right? It's like, okay, this happens, therefore this happens, therefore this happens, and we result in this. And you can look at it intellectually, right? But what happens to the person who was actually born with this? Well, what happens is that hey, Gabriel, another fellow GabSmacked, Gabriel Marquez. Hola. Buenos días. Or buenos días. So that person in real life is going to grow up being a bit taller than everyone else, going to have some cognitive difficulties because the synaptic nerves in the brain aren't formulated as well. And as a consequence, there's going to be bullying, there's going to be feeling inferior, there's going to be psychological suffering, not just by them, but by the parent, who has to, given the love of the parent, is going to suffer terribly watching their child feel as if they're left out, or etc., etc. So what I mean is that the lived experience is very different to the analysis. If you look at it from an analytical perspective, it's like, so what? Like, still a beautiful person, still amazing, still everything. Genetics works in various combinations and is blind in that sense. And each person will have different dials turned up in different ways, some more than others. And that's life. So you could talk about it like that. But instead, what that does is it dismisses the lived experience of the people going through it. So the parents, the people who are friends with this person who protect them from bullies, the person possibly becoming sterile, so that they have to deal with the fact psychologically that they can't have kids. And that comes back to what I was saying before in my last video about forgiving evil. So when I was talking about forgiving evil, I was talking about the intellectual way to do it. But the intellectual way doesn't obviously help with the lived experience. And the lived experience is that if you've been wronged, the degree to which you've been wronged forces a disconnect between what you know intellectually in terms of how to forgive through understanding and the ability to do so because your nervous system, I guess, is related when you've suffered the lived experience. So I'll give you 3 examples. In the first example, you're walking, you go into the elevator, you have new shoes on, someone else comes into the elevator with a bag. They pull the bag, and as they're pulling the bag, because it's their luggage, they're on their way to the airport, they don't realize that their bag is so wide, so it goes over your shoe. And you just bought this shoe, and their bag goes over your shoe and ruins the shoe, right? This is things, I mean, these are all things that you see, right? You grow up long enough, you see these things, right? So I saw this happen a few days ago, and the guy pulling his bag, what the nice hair transplant. Oh, thanks. No, I was I actually have a lot less hair than I used to. When I was a kid, I had a crazy afro. So slowly but surely, it's thinning out. um, yeah. What was I going to say? No, I'm very lucky, touch wood, with my hair, but hopefully we'll see how it keeps going. Now, I actually saw this happen the other day. So the bag came over the shoe, and then the guy wearing the shoes actually was angry at the guy with the bag, right? And that's a lack of understanding, because what actually happened was that the guy going to the airport is not used to holding a massive bag. So if you're not used to it, you forget that that you're what was I going to say? That you forget the width of the bag. And because you forget the width, then you don't realize that because you've passed the person, it doesn't mean your bag's going to pass the person. So your bag actually hits the other person's shoe. Now, the guy with the shoes turns around and is angry at the other guy because he should have known better. But that's actually not what's going on. There's a misunderstanding. Now, in that particular case, if you understand that person, it's easier to get over it, right? But the reason is because the emotional pain that you suffered is quite small. But if the emotional pain is bigger, then it becomes harder to reconcile your understanding of the other person with the emotional pain that you have. So it takes a lot longer to forgive. Now, of course, it's gonna escalate, right? And I think that the discrepancy is exponential. So what I mean by that is that if you understand what someone does to you and it's a small thing, let's say it takes a minute to understand what they did, or 10 minutes, and then after you understand what they did, it takes 10 minutes to forgive them. But if it's something huge and it takes 10 minutes to understand them, it might take years to forgive them because the emotional impact was so great that it can take that long. So the time between understanding their mindset to the point which you can forgive them increases, or that delay increases exponentially to the point where it might take 1,000,000 years to forgive someone, or maybe forever, that you can never forgive them. So that was the point that I was trying to say in terms of intellectually understanding something versus emotionally trying to process it. Anyway, my coffee is almost over, and now we're going to move on to the Middle Eastern coffee, the real coffee. So we will talk to you at that time in the future. And don't forget to take life one smack at a time.